Good morning, everyone. It is an early morning. Once again, there's my alarm to let me know that it's time to start the live stream in case I hadn't woken up yet. But I have. But I have. I am clearly not in the nerd cave. I'm in a hotel. So we're going to do watch party from a hotel today. Hopefully the Wi Fi hangs in there for us. So we are here for episode 4. This is like at the conclusion of this, it'll be the halfway point of the season, which is kind of crazy because it's only week 2. It's kind of wild. David Lightbringer, gotta say, the Sauron Celebrimbor stuff is just terrific. I agree. I think that's one of, if not the strongest part of the show. I think the dwarf stuff is still solid too. Yeah. What time does the episode come out? So we're about 30 minutes out. Yeah, we're about 30 minutes out. Philip Hatch. I just saw this. I didn't actually read because Deadline did an article about this, like Samba, which I'm not familiar with them, so I need to look at it because it was like super late last night when I saw that article. But yeah, it's what did it say that there was? Sorry, I'll pull it up because that seems like the thing to do. Um, yeah, there's I think Deadline. I think it was Deadline that reported the Samba numbers, and I need to. So if any of you know, let me know in the live chat. Is Samba like a reputable thing? Is that like a more a rumor thing? I just don't know. Um, but yeah, I was saying that like season 1 to season 2 premieres, like season 2's premiere was a lot lower, like half. Yeah, it was saying 1.8 million U.S. households watched the first episode last time, and then about half of that this time. Okay, Samba doesn't include mobile views. Yeah, so oddly enough, so Britain said Josh over at Den of Nerds talked about it. That's one of the few things that I did see. I think that's where I originally saw before seeing the Deadline article. I saw Josh's post on social media, about his stream, and I just happened to pull it up to a random time in the stream, and he happened to be talking about this, so I uh, listened to a bit of it. Um, yeah, they're not as legit as Nielsen, which I think Nielsen will come out presumably. It's so weird how like streaming is it seemed like back in broadcast days, like Nielsen could do these ratings and it was kind of widely accepted. And then streaming, like it's all up to the streamers to share that information. And they're kind of like, trust me, bro, like this is our numbers. Like as far as I understand it, maybe there's checks and balances there, but it seems like they just kind of choose whether to share stuff or not. Um, yeah, but I mean, you think back to when they like the word came out that there was I think it was 37% completion rate of season 1. So like people who stuck around um, from who started episode 1 that actually finished episode 8. Um, like that kind of adds up. So like 50% I think Josh made this point in his stream where that's actually a little like step up. So they like managed to get some interest level back overall because they were able to bump up from 37% to then like if you're comparing those numbers then up to 50%. I don't know if that maths out exactly right. But yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't surprise me knowing, like what the completion rate was and everything. So yeah, I'll be very curious though when like Nielsen ratings come out and we hear something really concrete. And I'm curious, have you guys heard? I haven't seen like any numbers released from Amazon about X number of households or X number of views or watch hour, however they want to put the metrics. I don't think they've released anything yet so far for season 1. Yeah. Amen. Lufitario. Hobbit plot is the weakest. Oh man. If you stick around the channel long enough, you will know that I wholeheartedly agree with that. Michael Reel, thanks so much for the super chat. Everything is better, like pacing and writing, but altogether, it's a lot more interesting than season 1. Yeah, I think after watching the first 3 episodes last week, I think I was looking forward to this week more than I have been for quite a while. Like probably early on in season 1 was probably the last time that I felt like, oh yeah, I'm actually like looking forward to seeing more and like getting excited about it. To have the excitement level uh where it was after these 3 episodes, you'd have to go back a ways. Yeah, I hope they're good too. That's always the hope, right? Thomas Potts, thanks so much for the super chat. Maybe Sauron should have made more than one Horcrux, right? Voldemort had it right. I mean, that didn't even work out for him though. Yeah. Can you imagine if Voldemort, if Sauron made like if he made multiple and it like it was just his hand like was full of rings? It'd probably be diluted though, right? I guess that's kind of that's a little bit the Horcrux thing though. Like they're splitting your soul a bunch of times, and like would Sauron's be diluted, or would it be somehow? Would there be multiplication there? Yeah, and it would look like the Infinity Gauntlet if he had a ring on each hand. It's probably good that Tolkien stuck with one. Let's see what you guys have in the poll here. How do you feel season 2 compares to season 1 so far? 69% say it's better than season 1. 22% say it's the same level. 9% say it's worse than season 1. So wow, almost 70% think that it's better than season 1. We've got about 20 minutes left until the episode. Mr. Mop, thank you so much for the super chat, Mr. Mop. Episode 3 was my favorite so far. Gave me hope. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when they drop batches of episodes, they start to mix together in my mind a little bit, so I have to remind myself like, oh yeah, Círdan was in the first 2 episodes. I really like Círdan. That's probably one of my favorite castings period, like just performances so far this season was Círdan. Michael Real, thanks again for the super chat. Interested to see how he goes from his fair Jesus-like Anatar to when he's wearing that armor from the trailers and looks more sinister. Yeah, he has like a black armor thing going on in the trailers. Yeah, I wonder if that will time with the fall of Eregion, or actually, see, now I'm second guessing myself. In the trailers, I think he might be wearing that when we see him in Khazad-dûm. Not 100% sure. Adam, welcome to the right time zone, he says. Well, I am currently I'm actually in London at the moment. I swung over here to visit some friends. I did get like a really cool, so I started this thing where every country that I visit, which isn't a lot of different countries, but I try to find like a cool Tolkien book in that native language. And so I got this Czech Hobbit, which is really cool. I love the, like Eastern European illustrations. They're always so creative and different. It's very unique. Hey, Gondorian Ranger 31 became a new YouTube member. Welcome, welcome. Now that you're a YouTube member, you can get access to the Discord. Jack Smith, my wife went into labor during the season 1, episode 7 live stream with our first. Now is season 2. Our second is 2 months. Oh, dang. Congratulations. Happy to be back with you all, even if it's adding to the lack of sleep. Orc family is valid. Yeah, so like I think I might actually release a video on that because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about whether orcs would have families. I do think I think it's a valid debate on whether it's fruitful to depict that, or to kind of like humanize the orcs in a show where like they're clearly going to be the bad guys at the end of the day. So is it worth the screen time? Like I think that could be debated. But yeah, the idea that like, oh, there's no orc women, there's no orc kids. It's like, yeah, they're 100% were. Christopher, thanks so much again for the super chat. 1.8 million down to 1 million is a lot, but still number 1 on Prime. Not like they're going to cancel or anything. 1 million is still good. Already working on season 3, I heard. Last I heard, there wasn't anything concrete about season 3. Like it's like a weird formality or whatever, but the actual green light of season 3, I don't think has happened, even though, they said ages ago that they were committed to a full 5 seasons. Like, I don't think they've been given, this is just me going off of like what I see in news articles and stuff. I don't think that they've kind of, I don't think they've given that green light yet. Raz, thanks for the super chat. Do you think so far the Wizards at the East are blue Wizards? If so, aren't both of them supposed to be good? That's a great question. Yeah, blue Wizards is what I've been rooting for the whole time. I think it would be a really cool choice and like something where they could make those wizards their own. So there's actually 2 versions of the Blue Wizard story. So if you end up, maybe after this checking out my video on the Blue Wizards, I explain in there how it initially, like, Tolkien envisions them failing, I would say in a way, like way worse than Radagast, like very similar to Saruman, really, where he says they founded ancient or magic cults, and they're basically, they basically fall to maybe not directly to Sauron, but um, in the way that Saruman does, but in a very similar way. Like they're definitely up to no good. But then later, Tolkien was like, "Yeah, I think they stayed good and they were instrumental in making sure the East didn't outnumber the West in like the key battles and everything." Um, so like I think it's kind of cool that they're doing one good blue wizard, and you know, if they are blue wizards, like they're doing one good blue wizard, one bad blue wizard. It's kind of like taking from both of those, which I think is really cool. So you're kind of getting both. All right. Do you think the Dark Wizard is a future Nazgul? Maybe even Kamul? I saw that, but like at the end of the day, the Nazgul are men. They're not Istari. So I don't buy into that one. I don't think he's gonna be, yeah, one of the Nazgul, because he otherwise he'd just be a guy. Like he'd just be a man. And Nana, thank you so much for becoming a member. Very cool. Um, oh, another thing I'm gonna do while I'm here in London today. I can't show it off. I have my Space Wolves shirt on. I'm gonna go up to Warhammer World. Have you guys seen the new Angmar stuff? I have a couple of them. And yes, I put these in my suitcase thinking like, oh, I'll show these off on the stream because they're really cool. Yeah, the Rise of Angmar stuff for Middle Earth strategy battle game looks pretty legit. They have like this you know, very like it's kind of like Wraith like guy. I've always thought it's really cool how they're able to pull book characters as well as movie characters, but do them kind of in the style in the movies. Then we have Earnor, the last king of Gondor. Tell you what, man, if I get, I can't remember how much it is. I'll have to look it up. If I get enough super chats today, maybe I'll just buy the giant Smaug. I think it's like $600, like US, and then I'll paint it on this on a very long stream. um, yeah, it'd be epic. Amir, thanks for the super chat. What do you think about the way Sauron resurrects? So I think like it was fine. The like goo thing was a little odd to me. Like I looking at, you know, the way the two are portrayed, I think I much prefer the you know, it's more in line with what I think in my mind when they talk about Sauron regaining shape and everything, because they say like how his spirit goes to the east and everything after his body is destroyed, right? Um, yeah, so I think like the necromancer depiction in the Hobbit films is actually much closer to what I I see when I read about Sauron, uh, you know, seeking to regain shape. So yeah, the goo stuff was a little weird. Like I did immediately think of Venom. It looked like Venom to me. Um, I had to chuckle a little bit when he like flops over the rock or whatever. Um, yeah, who doesn't like some, you know, who's not susceptible to some physical humor when he's just like thump. Obsidian, thanks for joining as a member. Welcome, welcome. Michael Real, thanks again for the super chat. I love the one good blue wizard and one bad blue wizard theory you just mentioned. They're baiting the stranger being Gandalf. Yeah, I didn't notice this last time, but I had someone pointed out to me that Nori. I totally missed this, and maybe I just like subconsciously block out anything that hobbits say in this show. But how she says how he needs a gand, which is like a word for wand. Um, but like Gand is obviously the root word there for Gandalf, and so yeah, like they're, you know, after the I wasn't convinced last season after the always follow your nose, because that seemed like a flimsy thing to base, like, oh, he's definitely Gandalf kind of thing. But yeah, like that definitely seemed like a hint toward that direction. And I'm not crazy about the idea of him being Gandalf. Like, it just, I don't know. It just seems so like it's kind of like adding hobbits. How it's like, oh well, you can't have Middle Earth without hobbits. Like, you can't have Middle Earth without Gandalf. And it's like you can for like a lot of the history of Middle Earth. You can. Um, yeah. STK Reacts, thank you so much for super chat. I've been religiously watching your channel and just now discovered the live watch party. Let's go. Long live the secret fire. Well, welcome to your first live watch party, first live stream. That's awesome. Glad you're enjoying the channel too. 790 people here. Very nice. Be sure to hit the like button, folks. That helps YouTube be like, hey, this is a cool stream. Let's get more people over there. Christopher Carbaugh, thank you for another super chat, Christopher. My goodness. When are you going to be on Rings and Realms? He broke down the show doing both versions of the Blue Wizards, many lore references, and a lot more. So that will be, I think he calls it their retrospective episode. It's basically like a week and a half or 2 weeks after the finale. Yeah, so it'll be after the season is fully concluded, so we can talk about the whole season. So yeah, I'm gonna be there. Alan from the Prancing Pony podcast is gonna be there. I'm looking forward to that. Like, it's always fun to talk about adaptations. I feel like, especially in person, where you can really engage in a long conversation, and it's not so limited as in a maybe an online setting tends to be. Bilbo Baggins. Thank you for the super chat, Bilbo. Hi, I just recently rekindled my love for Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, so I'm glad to be here. And I just recently got a book of Tolkien's called Beren and Luthien too. Very nice. Beren and Luthien, that's a great choice. Great choice. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, because it gives you, like, the Beren and Luthien book gives you multiple versions of that story. So I don't know if you may already be aware of this, but so if you're curious why it's like, oh, I kind of already heard this part, it's because it presents the different versions that Tolkien had for the story, which is cool. Kathleen of Airboard, did you see that Ian got asked back as Gandalf? Hoping they'll ask Lee Pace back as well. Yeah, I'm of the mindset, like, if Ian McKellen wants to play Gandalf forever, like, wizards are old. Like, I saw people saying he's too old, and I'm like, wizards are old, man. Like, it's not that crazy to think that he could play Gandalf, and like, I think it would be fine. It would be great. Like, we actually, so my friends and I got together for dinner last night, and Harry from Fellowship of the Fans made a great point. It's like who's gonna say, no, Sir Ian McKellen, we don't want you to play Gandalf. We're gonna recast it. Like, if Ian McKellen wants to play Gandalf, freaking cast Ian McKellen as Gandalf. 100%. LT Haldmere, never knew you were a Warhammer 40K fan, and even more a Space Wolf fan. I'm a Raven Guard player. Will you stream Space Marine 2 today? So I'm not at home, so all I have is my laptop here, and I'm not set up or suited right now to play it. I actually forgot, like, the actual release date, so I was looking online yesterday, and I was like, holy crap, Space Marine 2 comes out tomorrow. So yeah, I'm gonna have to wait till I get back home to the States though, here in a couple days and fired up. I'm excited. I'm a very new Warhammer 40K fan. But I kind of latched onto the Space Wolves because of the Norse inspiration. Felt very Tolkien to me. All right. Hey, we've only got 5 minutes, guys. Any news about the new open world Lord of the Rings video game? Thanks so much for the super chat. Reen, I think is how that is pronounced. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. It's very early in the morning for my, like, it's not here in London, but it's like my biological clock is like, what are we doing right now? Uh, I haven't heard anything on that one. Yeah. Is this like the Amazon one? I think that's the Amazon one, right? I'm guessing that's what you're referring to, is like they were going to do an MMO, right? Yeah. No, I haven't heard anything on that. Sorry. I just realized I don't have Prime Video pulled up yet, so I'll I'll pull that up so I actually know when the episode drops. That would be helpful. Lucas Perez, do you think Isildur will be stuck in Pelargir until Numenor captures Sauron? Good luck with getting Smaug. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else he gets home is the thing. Like nobody else. I mean, the elves could sail there. Like maybe is Isildur the one that, because Gil-galad requests aid? Like, is Isildur somehow the one that Gil-galad sends, or is part of the ship that Gil-galad sends to request aid from Numenor to help fight Sauron? Maybe, and that's how he goes back. Either that, or like his dad's gonna show up to fight and be like, "Holy crap, Isildur's here! I'm super glad you're not dead." That's probably verbatim. Those are the exact words that he will say. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would imagine he'll like do something. Like, I don't think he'll just be hanging out, in Pelargir doing nothing. So he'll be part of some action somewhere, I would imagine. Michael, thanks again for the super chat. I kind of feel like they're baiting him as Gandalf, but we'll do the classic switcheroo. Maybe not. Hopefully thinking. Yeah. From a like broad, putting on like my hat, that trying to tap into like the casual fan and like the the marketing of it and everything, and like the thought that companies and stuff would put behind this. I kind of think like if you it depends on how much they go down this road. Like yeah, saying Gand is one of those things where it's like, maybe not. Like maybe they're just using the word for staff or wand or whatever. Like that could totally be. And like for people who heavily dissect it, it could be a little misdirection, because the average person isn't going to catch on to a Gand and like be like, oh, he's Gandalf because she said Gand, which is the root word of Gandalf and all that stuff. It depends on how much they do it, right? Like if we keep getting these hints, so like every time there's more, I'm forced to acknowledge that maybe he's Gandalf instead of a blue wizard. So yeah, every time we go along and there's like a new clue. So when it was always follow your nose, I was like, oh, maybe not. Like, that's the show really likes to reference the Peter Jackson movies. So maybe that's just one of those instances. A wizard saying that is like another reference. Um, but like if as they start to add up at some point, like if you refer to him in ways that make even casual people think Gandalf, if you do that too much and then have him not be Gandalf, then it's kind of like this purposely misleading that ends to like frustration because you know even casual fans are picking up on these hints and it's like kind of you know I don't know, it would feel like disingenuous at that point to do like these really overt uh connections and overt references and then to like have him not pull like a switcheroo would kind of undermine I think a bit of that feeling that casual fans would have of being able to like catch on to things. All right, I'll keep refreshing my page. We'll see when we get episode 4. All right. Should be any second now. Remorse, thank you so much for the super chat. Can't help but chuckle thinking about Sauron drowning in Numenor and having to slowly swim back to Middle Earth in his goo flesh form. That is a great point because so like that's for those not familiar, that's the first time in the books that he actually loses his physical form. Um yeah, it's that will be interesting how that plays off. All right. Oh, okay. It looks like we do have episode 4 up. Let's do this. Okay. I will add the timer and we will get to the super chats after we watch this season. So, or the episode. Okay. Let me pull up. Okay. All right, let us start. I'll give us a countdown of 5 seconds. We'll get the timer going. We'll go for it. Here we go, guys. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That moment was so dramatic when Gilgalad's like, "But to lead it." It's like, "Yeah, but you're all on the same team, man. Like let's calm down a little bit." And we're in the intro right now. For those wondering, yeah, we don't skip anything just for the easiness, making it clear. Yeah. Jack Smith, that icon is actually Tom Bombadil. That's next to your name. But yeah, that's an unfortunate comparison. I won't talk like this through the whole thing, but since we're just in the intro. Mark, no, I don't have commercials, so we'll try to give some pause time at the end for folks that do. They're really snarky. Hmm. I just saw the comment Arondir is the worst wingman, and I had to read that out loud because that's hilarious. You want to know how I got this mask? That guy? It's quite the contrast to go from that like super serious ending and then they go jump right into the Tom Bombadil end credits song. It's kind of wild. Prime Video wants me to watch The Dark Knight next. Whoa, did they hear me say like the Joker reference thing? And that's kind of creepy. What? Because I said the thing during the episode where I was like, you want to know how I got this mask? What if it heard me and then it recommended The Dark Knight next? That's crazy. Sorry. We should talk about the episode. All right. What'd you guys think? Give me a rating, 1 out of 10. Put it in the chat. What do we get? We're gonna catch up on the supers real quick. Yeah, I personally, this was easily the weakest episode of the season for me. Easily. Okay. We're a bit over, kind of all over. I do think the scores are lower than like the previous 3, like when we did ratings after each of the previous 3. All right, let's see here. Britton Davis, Smaug Fund. Oh, thank you so much. Where did you get the hat? AKA, where can I get that hat? So the patch is from King's Wild, the guys who do like the Lord of the Rings playing cards. And then Justin from the OneRing.net actually put this on a hat for me and hooked me up at Comic-Con. But yeah, they're just iron-on patches from King's Wild. Cinematic Bliss, thanks so much for the super chat. Much appreciated, my friend. Derek Harkness, thank you for becoming a member. Welcome. Adam Scarf, who's your favorite member of the Fellowship? I like them all, you know? I don't know, because then I could go through and justify any of them, honestly, but Aragorn is I feel like is a good one. Can't go wrong with Gandalf as favorite person of the Fellowship. Christopher, by now I think it's safe to say they're doing the 2 versions of Blue Wizard, but by the end of season 5, how would you end their story? So I think this came in before we started the episode, by the way, because I think there were some things in here that was like, oh, so they're gonna make him Gandalf, right? Like, so I was saying before, like the number of times that we like allude to him being Gandalf, it's like the more times they do that, the more like just basic storytelling wise, the more harmful it would be if he's not. But like, yeah, the store lady saying, "Oh, he's a grand elf." That's pretty close to Gandalf. So, yeah. It's fairly subtle, but it's yeah. Michael Real, thanks for the super chat. Sorry, cracked open a first stage bottle, so my typing isn't great. Much love to the community. Awesome. Thanks for the super chat. Grimwolf, I watched 80% of your content. It's really well done. Thank you so much. My friend met Christopher Tolkien on the train in the UK in early 2000. Oh, that's a fun story. I'm curious, did he like talk to him and stuff, or like, or was it just like a, hi, you're Christopher Tolkien, nice to meet you, and then that was it? Or did they like actually have a conversation? Like, I'd be really curious to hear what they talked about. Nelly, Tom just gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling. Yeah, let's talk about Tom a bit. Um, like overall, I thought it was really fun to see Tom in live action, and I think they're so the actor playing him is Rory Kinnear. And I think he does a good job with like the warmth, and kind of the wit of Tom Bombadil. I think for me as I was watching, like, he's just kind of like murmuring the song and stuff like that. Like it almost like I feel like they were like scared to go where they needed to go to there's degrees of accuracy, but I feel like they were scared to go where they needed to go so that that character feels like it can't be any other character than Tom Bombadil. Like right now, he could kind of be like just kind of a kooky hermit right now, right? That's the way I look at it. Is like, he's not to a point as of yet. Like clearly he's going to be in more episodes. Like we've seen promotional clips and stuff and or trailer clips uh where he's gonna be a factor. They just kind of dropped that thread, by the way. Like halfway through the episode, we didn't go back to it at all. It was kind of like they swapped out the Isildur Arondir stuff at the halfway point of this episode, which I thought was weird. Like, and I saw people commenting on the pacing, and I think that's part of it. Um, yeah, so I just felt like the jolliness meter needs to be like cranked up some on Tom Bombadil. And I kind of had that fear when we saw the promotional images, and he looks very like just kind of like serious. And yeah, I wouldn't say he's like overly serious here by any means. Um, but he doesn't quite come across to me as like really super, jolly and just like, because when you meet him in the books, it's like, dude, are you from a different story? Like, um, and I get like adaptationally, like you don't want to like make him that extreme where like people are like, what the heck? Like this doesn't even, you don't want people to look at him and be like, this doesn't even make sense in the world that you've set up. But I do think they could have tapped into more of that jolliness that's so iconic with him. Yeah. Because otherwise he could have met like another wizard or met some other entity. So like what is it that makes this character need to be Tom Bombadil is what I kind of come to. Let's see here. Can Tom go beyond rules and interfere with paths? I mean, like Tom can, they did say like in the lead up to this season that it would be he'd be, I think they said like 10% more interventionist, which is fine. Like, like in Fellowship of the Ring, they talk about how like, oh, if we gave him the ring, he would lose it or throw it away, and like if we invited him to the Council of Elrond, he wouldn't come. So like, you know, um, I like it would be a huge mistake if Tom Bombadil like comes out wielding a sword or something. That'll like really be an indicator that it's just gone off the rails completely. Um, but I mean, it's not like he's an unhelpful person when someone stumbles across them, right? Like he doesn't cross from being someone who doesn't get involved to like someone who's just cold-hearted and like doesn't help people. Like he clearly helps the hobbits on multiple occasions. So like the stranger coming across him and like him giving him some advice, some help, like that's all right. I don't mind that so much. Um, yeah. Jordan, hey Jordan from Long Expected Soundscape. Hope you're doing well. What did you think of the voices of the Ents sound wise? I was pretty meh. Um, love the content, but how the voices were done. Jordan says. Jordan would have an audio related question. I don't know. I mean, they're kind of fine. Like, yeah. So, like I said, this episode I feel like is definitely the weakest of this season. Like after the first three, I was like, okay, this is clearly in my mind, just my 2 cents. This is clearly a step up from season one to me. And like I said, before the episode, it got me to the point where I was like looking forward to see to episode four, um, because of what was in episode three. I was like, Kierdan is freaking amazing. I love the Kierdan. Um, like the casting was great. Like the points that he makes to Elrond are just so wise. Like he just feels like he's on a whole other level. Yeah, I could go on, but like I really really like Kierdan. Um, and I like the Anatar story. And like so that's another thing that I think this episode suffers from is that in my mind the two best ongoing storylines that are kind of like merging into a single storyline at this point um, are Anatar and Khazad-dûm, and neither of those are in this episode. And you really like you feel that absence in the those storylines that I think are done the best in the show are not in this show. So it immediately like takes it down. And like, okay, stores. I just don't care about the stores. I'm sorry for the Hobbit lovers out there and stuff, but I just don't. I just don't see like why they're necessary in this show. Like I said, in like my reviews and stuff, like the whole Harfoot stuff, it feels like it could be cut out completely, and it would make no difference to the rest of the plot of the show. Um, yeah, I oh, that was not Barrack the horse, by the way, because he's back in Polar Gear. I'm pretty sure because he got him back. Anyway, yeah. So stores like and oh the by the way, that word Sugat that they said, that's the Westron word for the Shire, by the way. So they're 100%. If it wasn't obvious by like the description of like, oh, there's a place with rolling hills that we can dig holes in and stuff and live in and whatnot. Yeah, that was 100% like this guy had a vision or a prophecy of the Shire. Um, and yeah, like the origin of the Shire to me, it's just kind of like, all right, but like we're here for like I'm here when I look at the Second Age, I am here for Sauron manipulating people and playing people, you know, playing off their what they covet in their hearts. That the elves want to have these beautiful, majestic lands that rival Valinor, and he plays on that and makes rings of power. And then he plays on Numenor with how bitter they are that they don't have immortality. And he and it's that and it's the rising from the ashes of the fall of Numenor, and like the joining of all these people who have fallen prey to Sauron, joining together at the end of the Second Age and rising up to stand against him. And for me, like when you say like, oh, we're gonna show you how the hobbits joined together and found the Shire, it just feels very like cheap to me, I guess, if that's the right word. I'm not a movie critic, guys. I'm sorry. So I don't know how to verbalize it, but it just feels very like lowest common denominator thing. Like, oh, this is a recognizable thing people remember from the movies. Like, oh, we show the Shire. Like, yeah, we show how the Shire happens. People love that because they love hobbits. Like, I don't. It just doesn't feel like it's. Yeah, it's very low stakes. Someone I just saw in the chat says low stakes. Yeah, it just it doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the story. I just don't see how the founding of the Shire, or like them wandering and finding the Shire, is going to be, this big pivotal thing that people are going to be invested in. Like, imagine if that's at the end of season 5 and we have like 3.5 more seasons of hobbits wandering around to find the Shire. Goodness. Like, think of what you could do. Like, we didn't see Numenor in this episode at all either. And like, eventually that realm is going to fall, right? Spoiler alert. If you're watching this at an ungodly time in the morning, you probably are familiar with at least the channel and some of the book stuff, but like that's going to fall. Like, I would much rather they invested that screen time in setting that up, All right. I'm going to get way behind on chats here if I'm not careful. Should I get on my soapbox too much? Christopher Carbaugh, Tom Bombadil was magical. Love the Ents, but it was the weakest episode yet. Pace was off. Still hoping no Gandalf. That will ruin the show for me. Well, Christopher, we need to take a screenshot right now. Because like I said, the more little clues that say like the little, it's like a little red flag that pops up. It's like, hey, he's Gandalf. Like, oh, he needs a Gand. He needs a wand. Gandalf. And it's like, oh, so he's some kind of grand elf? Which, if you say real fast, sounds like Gandalf. Like, that's another one that it's like, psst, psst, he's Gandalf. Maybe not. I'm still hoping. I'm going to hope till the bitter end until they actually say the name full on out. But we might have to not frame. We might have to like screenshot this, Christopher, and see how you feel if it inevitably comes up. Yeah, David says, I think he's more of a pal, like Palando. See, that would have been great. Wouldn't that have been great? No, it wouldn't have. It would. It feels very heavy-handed to be like, he's such a pal. Palando. Michael Real, thanks again for the super chat. Definitely think this will be the weakest episode for the whole season, but this episode would not have been the worst episode in season 1. Ooh. I'll have to think on that. Like, where would this rank? I haven't even been like considering like where episodes would rank overall in the series. Yeah, probably not. Yeah. Yeah, I think it sure seems like a lot of people are saying like this is the weakest of the season so far. I don't know. I think you could make the argument that it would be weaker than a lot of season 1 though. Cuz it just, and part of it for me, like it falls into some of those traps of season 1. Like, we have these plot lines that like the pacing, like I said, we're with Tom Bombadil, like it's kind of building up to like, oh, there's going to be a conflict. Like the Dark Wizard's like, I'll handle the E-Star. And then he goes, and then we see them like showing up at Tom Bombadil's, and then we just don't show it anymore for the whole episode. And like the way this show has been structured historically, like this episode, we didn't see Anatar, the dwarves, or Numenor at all. Like, I don't know when to expect the Dark Wizard to show up and fight or, confront Tom and the other wizard. Like it could be 2 weeks before we even see that. And it's like, if you're a casual viewer, like, are you even going to remember that the E-Star went after the other E-Star? I don't know. Like it's just a very odd pacing. And then to like, I completely forgot that they showed Isildur stuff in the previously on segment at the beginning because it was halfway through the episode before they cut to Isildur and stuff. It's just a very, very odd pacing choice for me, the way this one was edited. Arondir called Theo Lord of Pelargir. Definitely believe now that he is the King of the Dead. Ooh. Yeah. That's another theory I like, because I've seen a lot of people say Nazgul, but I think King of the Dead is a good. They didn't do a whole lot. Like, I would almost expect there to be more with him and Isildur than there was. There was a little bit, but not much. Like, you'd almost expect them to, which they have time, I guess, because if presumably they forge an alliance that Theo would break, like there might be opportunity for more screen time between the two. But you think they'd develop that relationship a bit more for that to feel like more of a betrayal. Which, yeah, I could get behind that. Like the idea that you give a more personal connection to between Isildur and the King of the Dead. That could be really interesting. Obviously that would be an expansion on the lore, but like that sounds like it's got potential there. Farmer Maggot board games. Hey, love the watch party. Who would win in a fight, Theo versus Barrick? Oh, Barrick, 100% right now. Yeah, I think Barrick. I think he's got a higher orc kill count, doesn't he? I don't think Theo's actually killed any orcs. If he has, then he's had help, but he usually gets like bailed out by somebody. Miami Catfish, thanks for the super chat. Could the portrayal of the stores lead to themes related to Gollum, who I think was a store? Yes, Gollum was a store. I don't know. I don't know, like, and I'm curious, like, what themes related to Gollum that you think would pop up and like make sense and everything. Because Gollum's such a unique character. He's not just like any other store. Obviously, he has an experience that's totally different from any other of his people. Like he lives for 500 years and is like, succumbs to the power of the ring and everything. So I don't know that. I don't think you could do like the same things. Like they might tie it into the stores. But even then, like between Isildur losing the ring and Gollum, there's like 2,500 years or something. So it wouldn't really make sense for Isildur to lose the ring and then like one of these stores in the show to just be like, oh look at this, I'm Gollum. Ande, what are your thoughts of the Dark Wizard, acting Kieran Hines? Could he be the Witch King in the end? I don't think so. No, I think he is. I think that he's an actual wizard and not just like a human sorcerer kind of thing. But yeah, no, I really like him as an actor, and I think he kind of like exudes this dark menace kind of thing. Like, it's kind of one of those intangibles. It's hard to describe, but like when people walk in and he kind of like very passively threatens them, like it feels substantial. And yeah, I was like, that was something. And again, it's like, kind of the thing. Sorry about that, guys. I accidentally, I was trying to scrub on my computer here, and it sent me back out to the main page. Let's try that again. Yeah, so I was like, I was kind of intrigued, like, oh, what's that confrontation going to be like between this, dark wizard and everything. And then they just like cut away from it. And like I said, we don't know when that's gonna happen. Yeah, but I like him as an actor, and I think he's very convincing as a dark wizard. Remorse, thanks so much for the super chat. Calling it now, Theo will become a Nazgul. Him now sharing a storyline with Isildur will make even more emotional when his fate will be the polar opposite of the future king of Gondor. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I mean, I think you sent this, probably before we were talking about this exact thing. Yeah, that was, I think, when they paired up Theo and Isildur, that was the moment where I thought, okay, they might actually be doing King of the Dead. Just because that connection, like, it feels much more significant to do that than make him be the Witch King or any other Nazgul. Um, because that there, and even if it's not really, like I said, there's not a whole lot there. There's not a whole lot of meat on that story right now between the two of them. Um, but it's something to build on. Like they did make that connection, and that pairing was interesting to me. And so yeah, I'm curious to see who Theo ends up being, if anyone, if like any, you know, book character, if he ends up being someone. I think I would put money on King of the Dead over Witch King right now, or any Nazgul. Michael Real, thanks again for the super chat. Ban hobbits equals problem solved. Seems like a solid idea to me. Nelly, thanks for super chat. Why are they not contempt in just building character for the people that are involved in this already massive story? We don't need more of the Harfoots. Yeah, so like you're kind of getting at the point, like there's already so many storylines. Like I thought season 1 was kind of an example of this, where there's just so many characters and so many uh you know areas and plot lines going on that none of them really had reached like a depth that you would want in a show like this, or a show this big. It felt like the screen time was spread too thin among all these. And so then, yeah, to like introduce a whole nother culture here with the stores, and like a whole nother Hobbit thing. Like in the first season, it was like, oh, we're wanderers, we leave people for dead. And like I kind of appreciated that they were like, yeah, we're gonna ban you. And Nori was like, yeah, we'd probably do the same thing. It's like, that checks out. um but yeah, it just feels like one of those things where you got so many storylines going on. Like I kind of wish they would like develop some of the other ones more before, or instead of adding in a bunch of new characters. If anything, like, it needs to be pared down, like, and I don't say this just being like the Hobbit hater in the a second age Hobbit hater, but like, if anything, you should probably kill off some characters and like thin things out a little bit so that you can invest more in the characters that we need to invest in. Like every episode this season, I feel like that we go without Celebrimbor is kind of a bummer, because he's on a ticking clock. Like his time is limited here on this show. And yeah, so every time we go a full episode without Celebrimbor and like developing him at all, feels like a missed opportunity to me. Philip Hatch, thanks for the super chat. What would have made season 1 feel like an event type series? Oh, what would have sorry, I'm phrasing this all bad. Uh, what would have made season 1 feel like an event type series like Game of Thrones? And because of that makes season 2 pop off more clearly. That's been Amazon's mission, and they've missed the mark. Man. Yeah, I mean, I do think that, I think especially in season 1, like the writing was a weak point, and like um, that's one of those things. Like, it's pretty rare that like a hit show doesn't have like really good writing, and so when the writing isn't at that level to make it a phenomenon, like the kind of show that everyone says you have to watch this. No, you don't understand. It is so good. I think it comes down to the writing. I think, some of the pacing issues and um, the screen time being spread too thin. Like these are all things that contribute to that as well. Like when a show feels cohesive and like just makes you crave more. Those are symptoms. Those are symptoms. Those are attributes of like a hit show, like you're talking about. That I don't think this show's had. Um, which is a shame because like I said, music, visuals, like they're in, a lot of the performances, I feel like a lot of the actors that are in it are like really talented. Um, and those elements like help to elevate the show. Um, it's just like the whole thing hasn't come together. And like a hit show like Game of Thrones, like you're talking like a show that's a phenomenon, you know, and the kind of show that people say you have to watch this. No, you don't understand. Don't fight, they will fight you to like make you watch the show. That kind of show, like they don't come around like a lot, you know? It's something special when it does happen. And, you know, yeah, this show was kind of set up like with that in mind. But yeah, that hasn't come to fruition so far, I don't think. Um, I saw in the regular chat here, Sebastian asked, "What's your opinion on orcs having kids and positive feelings? Um, does this not contradict the idea of orcs in Tolkien's view?" So it's a very interesting topic, and I think I will go ahead. I think I will do a video because it's become like a big thing. Um, like orcs having like there being orc women and orc children does not contradict the lore at all. Like Tolkien is very clear. Like, yeah, there were orc women. Like that's how they reproduced. There were men, there were women, they had babies. Very clear as day. Um, the morality around the orcs is kind of the area that's debatable as far as I think more from a storytelling point, because when Tolkien was writing his letters and he's wrestling with this idea of orcs being irredeemable, that doesn't jive with his theology, really, his beliefs. And so that's what he like struggled with later in life, was like, oh, you have this irredeemable race, like that doesn't jive with his Christian beliefs, right? Um, so it's a very interesting, I feel like, philosophical and theological conversation and debate. Um, but I'm not convinced that it's like a worthwhile investment in a show like this where the orcs are going to inevitably be the bad guys. Like again, like you're using screen time to like sympathize with the orcs, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be like the elves are morally gray and the orcs are morally gray. Like at the end of the day, there's no real stories. You look even at the first age, like yeah, there's elves who do bad stuff. Like the elves aren't squeaky clean, but like the elves that we get stories about that are the heroes, they're unquestionably the good guys, and the orcs are unquestionably the bad guys. So I just question the not the validity, but the execution and like and how worthwhile it is to delve into that in a show like this, where, like I said, the orcs are inevitably going to be the bad guys. So I don't know that it's worth that screen time and that exercise to try to get people to feel bad for the orcs, when at the end of the day, like when Galadriel's fighting the orcs there, nobody, and I don't think the show means you to think this, like nobody's thinking like, oh my gosh, I bet that orc that caught on fire had a family. Like we're thinking like, oh my gosh, wasn't that cool how Galadriel like swung the arrows through the falling torch and then like shot the arrows at the orcs? Like that's what we're thinking there, because we're rooting for Galadriel to defeat the orcs. We're not going to be like, oh man, that orc baby back home is now an orphan. Like that's not, it's not, maybe that's just me. Maybe you will worry about the orphaned orc baby. Um, I think I'm just cool with the elves taking out orcs, you know? All right. Crownless King, it will be cool to see it was cool to see one of the nameless things and for it to be called such, even if it was shoehorned in for no reason. What do you think? Yeah, shoehorned in, I think that's a valid assessment. Yeah, it was cool to hear like the nameless things. I did like for like it just fired off in my brain as I was watching it for the first time was like he says there are nameless things in the deep places of the world, and I was like, dude, you're on the surface level, man. Like you're not in the deep places of the world. Like clearly this one is not in the deep places of the world. Um, but yeah, I mean it's always cool to get like those moments. The inclusion of like the line deep places of the world, it kind of, and again, like the show, I feel like the show has this problem where like it just can't help itself but refer to the Peter Jackson movies or like memorable lines from it. So Galadriel obviously there at the end is like go back to the shadow. You see, and I naturally do it in Gandalf's voice because it's like an iconic line from that interaction. Um and kind of the same thing. It's like in the deep places of the world, like Gandalf says that about like, oh, there's older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. And it's kind of like you're not in deep places. So like that this is kind of like an example. Like they're just using that phrase because it goes with the phrase and not like because it goes with what they're showing, which yeah. And that's a small thing. Maybe that's nitpicking. But yeah, it was just one of those things like it just feels like, checking the box, like, "Oh, we got that reference in there. Cool. We got our." I don't know, maybe there's, like, studies that show, oh, we viewers react, if we have, uh, 4.73, references to the movies every episode or something, like, something really super, uh, research based, I don't know. Um Thanks so much for the super chat, B. Arciaga. I enjoyed the episode. I look forward to an epic battle. Hello from Tolkien Photography. Oh, Tolkien Photography. Very cool. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm curious to see the battle that's coming up. Like it'll be starting here pretty soon. Like I said, we're halfway through the season already, which is wild. That we're 2 weeks in because of the 3 episode drop. We're 2 weeks in and we're halfway through this season. That's crazy. So like 1 month. We have 4 weeks left. Parla Media, thanks for the super chat. Like a highlight reel, Barrow Whites, Unnamed Things, Bombadil, Middle Eastern Hobbits, Ents, Gandalf Puzzle, Elf Acrobatics, all in 1 hour. Yeah, it did. I'm curious what you guys think. What did you guys get this feeling that like Barrow Whites was pretty short to me? Like that scene, excuse me. Like it felt like we were just kind of getting little tastes of these things that we're familiar with or from the books and stuff, but none of them really. And I mean, Tom has a chance still because he'll be in more episodes and everything. But like the Ents, it's a maybe a bit more than like a cameo, and the Barrow Whites, pretty much a cameo. Um, yeah, there's just a handful of things that get featured here that I was just like, oh, we're just kind of like working that in a little bit, and it didn't. Again, it's like a pacing thing. Like I didn't feel like we really got any, which we don't necessarily have to, but like any deeper understanding of what Barrow Whites are and stuff like that. It was just very surface level. Like, okay, we'll do some exposition. I do like that Elrond was like, oh, according to the lore, blah blah blah. Like being the lore master. That was kind of a nice touch. Like, hey, Elrond's a book nerd, so that's cool. That's always a nice reminder. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just yeah, for something I was like the Barrel Whites, I do think visually they look freaking amazing. I stand by that. Um, and like it was creepy as heck, which is great. So yeah, it's like I didn't dislike the Barrel Whites at all. It just felt like they're just kind of like this. We just got this like little taste of the Barrel Whites. So yeah, my biggest complaint about Barrel Whites is that the scene was too short. Really. Um, Michael Reel, thanks for the super chat. In season 1, I didn't care about not seeing Charlie Vickers, but with this episode, you experience what's lost without him. Yeah, I think like his is one of the most impressive performances of this show to me. Like I didn't really care about Halbrand, and I really didn't like that Halbrand ended up being Sauron. But I've always said, like, when he makes the switch, when the switch flips and he's Sauron, like he's not tricking anybody anymore. And the line, "I've been awake since before the breaking of the first silence." Like from that moment on, like I was on board with him as an actor playing Sauron. And like I think he's done a good job of like tweaking his performance to be Anatar so that he's like at the core he's the same character, right? But he's playing Anatar, which is not the exact same. Like there's subtlety in his performance, and there's you can tell that it's like Sauron is playing a character here. And like you can tell that there's a difference in the approach between playing Sauron and playing Anatar, which I think yeah, I think he's really good. And yeah, so like I know the big question was like, well, how's he going to show back up in a Region being the same actor and like having the same face? And I think they did that pretty well, like in previous episodes, explaining how Celebrimbor would fall for it. Like he doesn't get the memo that he's Sauron. Um, which again, it's like probably information that Galadriel should have shared, but she didn't. So yeah, like I think so people are saying like, oh, he puts on a wig and then he's unrecognizable. That wasn't the case. I thought like him showing his true form, like really really cool scene, and I love the Anatar Celebrimbor setup there. Um, Man, how crazy is it that like we just watched a new episode and I'm talking about the previous episodes? If that doesn't tell you something about how I feel about the previous episodes of this season versus this episode, I think like that's an indication there. Um, oh, thanks for another super chat. Michael, shout out Matt, make some noise for the nerd of the rings. Still no Celeborn. Dude is slacking and MIA, right? Thank you, Parla Media. Where is Celeborn? I don't know. Like, surely at some point, right? We'll get Celeborn. Like, he doesn't have to be a huge part of the show. Like, he can be, it's kind of a thing with adaptations that Celeborn is pretty takes a back seat, which is fine. Yeah, so it's like he doesn't have to be a huge part of the show, but yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice. Miami Catfish, thanks for a super chat. So I wonder why a golem came to be from a store as a ring bearer when that did not happen to Bilbo as a Shire hobbit. Wait, sorry. Maybe the pre-Hobbit portrayal in Rings of Power may address that in some way. Oh, okay. So like how how he came to look like Gollum and stuff. That's just like the duration that he has the ring, because he has it for 500 years. Bilbo has it for what is it, 70 or some 71? No, 77 years, something like that. Is that right? It is really early in the morning for me to do math and remember years off the top of my head. All right. Oh, Connor Flattery. My first Tolkien book was actually Children of Hurin. Talk about a downer. Yeah, it's very different tone. Very different tone, Connor. Um, sorry, let me get rid of this one that I've already read there. Yeah. It's a really good book though. That's one of my favorites. Okay, so David Drake brings up a good point. I do hate that they're trying to make the three rings feel similar to the one ring. So I don't think it's like quite that overt. I think the fact that Galadriel like gives it to Elrond signifies a difference there, whereas the one, like, people don't just like hand that over to each other, right? That takes you over in a way that we're not seeing with these. So that's good. Um, yeah, I am curious to see, and I feel like I need to see more of like how these rings work. Okay, so what did you guys think? What did you guys think of the force healing? Like Galadriel unlocking Jedi force healing powers? Because that to me, like, eventually, like when that happened, I was just like, what? Yeah, I just was not sold on the force healing thing. Don't tell Qui Gon. That's right. Faceless Hurdle. Do you think a first age series is possible? Um, I mean, from a storytelling perspective, absolutely. From a rights perspective, not at the moment. Um, yeah, that's. I don't know if that's on the table or anything that the Tolkien estate would consider. Like Silmarillion rights will be the next big thing at some point, I think. Um, Now that may be much later down the road, like when Lord of the Rings and Hobbit are in public domain and there's nothing to license because it's public domain. Maybe that's what is the impetus. I hope not. Like I hope it comes sooner. I hope that the right pitch comes along. Um, and that there's a series or a series of movies or something from Silmarillion. Like that would be really cool. Gollum Mode says, thanks for your thoughts, Matt. Well, thank you, Gollum Mode, for the super chat. And thank you to everybody, by the way, for letting me know your thoughts on. Yeah, it seemed like we kind of got mixed reactions on the the force healing. Yeah, the Star Wars references. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Sometimes things trigger other things in your mind, and you just roll with it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so Prose says, does Galadriel healing a wound with the ring have basis in the books? The closest thing that you could find to that, I believe, would be the fact that, like, Elrond is known as a great healer in the books. He's the one that heals Frodo's stab, with the Morgul blade. Um, and you get the sense that his ring, so spoiler alert, he's going to get Gil-galad's ring at some point. So Vilya, that enhances his abilities to heal and stuff. That's the closest kind of inference and that you could extrapolate from. I think, just again, this is just me personally. So like if it worked for you, totally fine, totally valid. For me, like the force healing thing, it just went kind of into like more sci-fi to me or whatever. It just there's like a subtlety to Tolkien's magic, and that didn't seem subtle to me. Um it like the like if anything, I would expect her to like slow the bleeding or so, or like it's kind of like with the Ethelas in, when Frodo gets stabbed, and it's like, oh, it's gonna slow the poison kind of thing. Like that's what they did in the movies and stuff. It's like it's gonna slow the process. If anything, I would think it would be like that. Um, Not just like this instantaneous, like the arrow falls out, he's totally fine, he's up running around, um, and just like I don't know how else to put it, but like the force healing, like it's essentially the exact same thing that we see in the Star Wars movies. Um, yeah, all right. Ooh, speculate a bit about Elrond now having Nenya. Yeah, it's kind of odd, isn't it, to see like other characters handling the rings that are so synonymous, like Galadriel and Nenya. Like that's pretty synonymous. So like to have someone else wielding it, like I wonder, will Elrond put it on at some point? Will he experience like the enhanced foresight kind of thing? Or will and I think that'll be a clue to how they're playing off the three rings, because that's been something I've been skeptical of as well. Sorry, I can't remember who said it in the chat, but the idea that it would be similar to the one and like tempt them and stuff, like especially when they made a very clear distinction, like Sauron wasn't involved in making these. They tried to draw that line and get that technicality, you know, uh, that technicality was like a big point in their debate on whether to use them or not, right? Um, so I'll be curious to see, and I think this time period with Elrond having the ring will kind of tell us, like, is he going to be tempted to use it for practical reasons, or is it going to be like he like hears these whispers from the ring, that kind of, falling back on that kind of thing from the One Ring, kind of like doing the whisper thing in the movies. Um, if it's the latter, then I think, I'll like that a lot less if it's, if it's a temptation as, from the ring itself. Like that would feel like something wholly different than just it being like a practical thing. Like Elrond opening his mind to the possibility of using this thing if they get, in a certain situation, or like, oh, like they find out, well, all that we did with them is going to come undone if we don't have three elves wearing them. And it's like, well, shoot, I guess I'll put it on because I have to, kind of thing. I don't know. That's just a really super random example off the top of my head. Nelly, do you believe they will stick the landing as the series finale? And where will they end the story? I bet it's with the Harfoots coming to the Shire. Yeah. So Harfoot's coming to the Shire sure seems like a smart bet. If you've listened to my ranting from earlier in this, then I think you'll have an indication on whether I think there'll be any landing sticking happening with Harfoot specifically. Um, I think that they will end either either right after the Last Alliance or slightly after that. Like we might get, the wrap up, things wrapping up after that. But I think at some point, I would have to imagine in the season finale, we are getting the War of the Last Alliance. Um, that'll probably be the episode title too, The Last Alliance. With Gil-galad and Elendil fighting against Sauron, Sauron's fault. That whole thing, I think, would be the finale, along with some like wrap up after that. Like I would think that Elrond maybe might meet Celebrian at some point. I don't know. That comes later, but they've kind of played around with the timeline and stuff. Um, Surely Celeborn will be around by then, right? Um, yeah. So like the question for me is like, how far do they take like Isildur? Like, do they leave it kind of nebulous and like let it lead into what we know happens with him and how he loses the ring, or do they depict that and that's like part of where it ends off? um yeah, I'll be interested to see like where it is. It's hard to tell at this point, like if they will stick the landing. Like I feel like there needs to be a lot of groundwork, like before we talk about sticking the landing, it's like stick each season, you know like get it to where like there's certain things. I think I said this in one of my breakdowns. Like Gil-galad has a long way to go before I'm gonna feel devastated by his loss in the Last Alliance. Elendil is a good chunk of the way there. Like I like Elendil. Like they've given us reason to like that character and sympathize with that character. But like Gil-galad, he just kind of pops in to, you know, decree some things, argue some things, and then we don't see him for like a long time. Like it would not surprise me if he doesn't show up again until episode 8, just because he was just very sparsely used in season 1. So yeah, I think yeah, before we're able to even like hypothesize of can they stick the landing stuff, like I think I need to see a lot more in these episodes and in subsequent seasons and everything, um, to like get people really invested in the key characters that are going to play a huge role in that Last Alliance thing. Yeah, I like at this point sticking, nailing the fall of Numenor is much more forefront of my mind than Last Alliance series finale kind of stuff. So Falahide's next season. Devin, thanks for the super chat. Probably, it kind of seems like that's the route. Like maybe they'll leave Rune and then they'll like stumble upon the Falahide somewhere else. I don't know. That's probably a reasonable assumption though. All right. Dashwood House. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm fine with them making up stuff, but they're just grabbing random stuff and hope it works. I like the first 3 episodes, but this one is bad. I think that's a totally valid take. Yeah. It's there is a like it does come across that way, and I think maybe it's partially pacing, maybe it's, again, the fact that some of these things are just kind of like they just feel kind of like dropped in there, like Barrow Whites. It's like, oh, we'll just pepper that in there. So it makes it feel more random when when it doesn't feel like a pivotal part. Like the nameless creature, I think, is probably the most overt example of that in this episode. Where like it's just kind of a thing that pops up. It happens, whatever. Like there's no real like context. It's not really a driving thing. There's like no build up to it. It just kind of happens. Yeah. So like if you're looking for more behind the nameless thing, not that there's a lot to say. Like they're very mysterious by nature, right? But yeah, it just does just kind of feel like a bit random when it doesn't feel like it fits into the story. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Still, like I said, I'm on a reasonable time now. It's 10 a.m. here in London, where I'm visiting for a couple days, and that's a much more reasonable time. But my internal clock, man, does not know what to do right now. It's messed up. All right. The Scream Man, thanks so much for the super chat. New to the channel and just a casual Lord of the Rings fan, but just want to say thank you for being fair with your thoughts with the show, film versus books. It's rare in fandoms. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, there's obviously a lot of I try to be fair. Thank you for saying that. Like I try to give credit where credit's due and criticize the things that I feel like don't work. Um, I think the world at large could use more nuance in it, and but I think most people are like that. Like I don't think it's like it might be unique on some platforms, but I don't think it's unique among people. Like I think when I go places and talk to people and not like the online personas that sometimes people put on, like it's I feel like we are nuanced. Like people are nuanced. And most people realize that there's a value, and like that's where we need to be. Like it's not just always this black and white thing, like, oh, this show is the greatest show ever. This show is the worst trash of all time. Like that the hyperbole, my goodness. Like it's the reality is somewhere in the middle, and it can fluctuate depending on the person, and that's cool. Like it's fandom is so much more fun, I find, talking and even debating people when you can do it respectfully. um I have some like great friends, like, I mean, you know, you guys, like, here in the chat, like we have conversations. Some of you agree with me, some of you disagree with me, and that's great. And like we're respectful about it. And that's when fandom is fun. And I have, other content creator friends in the fandom, and we debate really hard about some of these things, about this very show even. And like there's some of them that totally disagree with my takes, and that's cool. And like we have really fun debates, and it's so much more fun to debate these things when you can walk into it and walk out of it with the respect for the person that you're talking to. Yeah, I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but yeah, I think it's such a much more fun way to engage in fandom for me. Um, yeah, I didn't do a poll. I just realized I usually do a poll to rank the episode, and I didn't do that. So let me do that real quick. I have this handheld mic because I'm mobile setup today. All right, I'm gonna set this down for a second, and I'm gonna put the poll question up so we can get rankings from you guys. All right, here we go. So here we go. We'll do. All right. Here we go. Bam. There's the poll. Let's get it. What do we got? My spirit animal is a dwarf. Okay. Yeah, Tolkien wanted certain things like Tom to remain a mystery because he understood every fantasy needed unexplained things in it. Well, and I think too, like sometimes you run the risk of over explaining things. It's like the midi chlorian thing, to bring in another Star Wars reference for those who like the Star Wars references when I do those. It's like the mystique, the mystery, that's the word, mystery, um, around the Force, and how it's like, ooh, maybe I could wield the Force. And then like when it's like, oh, it's a blood test, and then we know if you have the ability for the Force. Like it's the sciencing away. It like robs so much of the magic to me. Not to get on like a prequel thing. Um, but yeah, that's like one of those examples where it's so much better left to the imagination, or left to be mysterious and be mystical. Like there's sometimes where that's okay, and it's actually better than if you try to explain everything. Yeah. Let's see here. Where are we at here on this? Okay. So we've got 12% say 9 to 10, 29% say 6 to 8, 38% say 4 to 5. So you guys are, I feel like you guys are mostly agreeing with me here. Like we kind of have a, this is an interesting spread. Like the episodes 1 through 3 were definitely higher. Like they were mostly on the top two bars, and now we're at the middle 2 bars with the 4 to 5 actually being the highest. So that's interesting. We'll see. Hopefully we get Celebrimbor and Anatar back next episode. Like surely they won't go 2 episodes without them, right? All right, I'm gonna do one more poll because I do like the polls. Let's see here. I want to hear what you think is the best storyline so far. All right, so there's kind of a lot of them though. I'm gonna have to like condense and combine a little bit, I think. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go with that. Like it's kind of wild that I couldn't like I was like combining things and I couldn't really fit them all into one into one poll. Dead by Screams. The good storylines weren't in episode 4. Let's see here. Sorry. We'll probably wrap up here in a little bit, just FYI, because I need to catch a train up to Nottingham. Like I said, for those who weren't here earlier, I'm gonna go out visit Warhammer World. It's always super fun. Like been there once before, and when I'm here in London, I'm like, oh, it's quick train ride, good stuff. I'm only choosing the top one because you shoehorn dwarves in there, and I like Disa. So I don't think I shoehorned them in that poll because their story is now like intersecting with the Anatar story, right? Because their whole thing is set up now where they have this darkness, and now they're offering, like, they've officially offered rings. They're creating rings at the end of the last episode. So I feel like those storylines have merged in my mind because yeah, because I think at that point, like at this point, it's okay to wrap those together because I think they're very dependent on one another and they're intersecting for sure. Oh yeah, it's pronounced Nottingham, right? Sorry. I have American pronunciations. My bad. Next episode will be all dwarves and humans, maybe. So, like, do you think we'll go back to Numenor? Yeah, Numenor's been very sparse. So, like, it was in 1 episode so far out of the first half of the season. So we've got like maybe 20 minutes in Numenor so far. Yeah. Dashwood House, thanks for super chat. For me, it will be the Anatar and the Numenor story because those are the essence of the Second Age. Yeah, no, that I think those are yeah, I think those are pillars of the second age. And I saw someone ask, forgive me if I can't find it. Someone asked me like what I want to see in the rest of the season. Um, yeah, it's a like I've always said, this show, like the invented stuff, some of it I can go with, some of it I'll be like, oh, I don't like that. But the big canon stuff is like where, that's like where the core of the show for me needs to be and like kind of hinges on. So like Celebrimbor and Anatar, and that's part of the reason why I like the first 3 episodes so much more than this one. Like that Celebrimbor Anatar stuff, like that is, like I didn't picture Celebrimbor the way he looks, but like I've said before, I think Charles Edwards is phenomenal. He's like won me over as Celebrimbor. So I'm totally on board with his Celebrimbor. I feel like the Anatar stuff and like his reveal and everything, like it was just really well done. But then it's, you know, over in Numenor, like I feel like we haven't really reached any kind of potential that there is with that story. Yeah, I think there's a lot more potential with Numenor than what we've seen so far. And there might be like some time compression issues there, but yeah, I think there could just be more development and more to like the mortality aspect of it that we haven't really touched on much at all. To understand why the Numenorians resent the elves and everything. They just kind of don't like elves in this show. Yeah. So yeah, the Numenor needs a lot more. It's kind of like how I reacted to like Celebrimbor in season 1. It's like, oh, it's kind of cool that we got Celebrimbor, but we need more of him to like be able to say like they hit that canon beat that's so important to the story. Like I was like, oh, we need more Celebrimbor, which we have gotten this year. I feel like that's the same thing now that I'm thinking with Numenor is like we've got a little bit, but we need more to really capture that story. So maybe that's a season 3 thing though. Like I'm not getting overly fussed about not spending time in Numenor again because like the runtime is kind of at a premium here. So if it comes down to it, like they need to invest in the Celebrimbor Anatar stuff because that has a much closer, much tighter ticking clock, whereas the Numenor stuff probably has a little bit more time, like at least one more season, I'm thinking. Like at the earliest, end of season 3 would be the conclusion of the Numenor storyline. That's what I'm thinking anyway. They need to make us care when Numenor falls. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things like the Gil-galad thing that I said. Like they really need to make us feel that loss. And like a lot of that I think will be through the eyes of Elendil, probably, the way things are kind of setting up. Like when he's like we need to feel that like when he lands on the shores of Middle Earth after the downfall, like them losing Numenor, like that, like we need to feel that through him. And we need to like, and not to just solely leave it on like the actor's performance too. Like it's not just because he cries we're sad, or like because he looks forlorn we're sad, or whatever. Like we have to understand why, like we have to be given a reason why to also feel that hit. So yeah, that's what I know. That's not the original question that spawned whatever the heck kind of tangent I've just gone on, but I think yeah, I think that's kind of an important thing looking at the future seasons. Yeah. Well, hey guys, like I think I'm gonna wrap it up here because, like I said, I need to catch a train. And I'm an American, so like we're not used to public transport. So there's that chance that I might mess it up if I cut myself too close on time. Because we just don't know what to do. We drive everywhere. We drive wherever we go, basically, in the state, unless you're like in a really big city, I guess. But that's not me. I'm not in a really big city. drive I drive myself. And so yeah, public transportation, it's like, whoa, hey, I gotta get on a train? A train? What if I have to change trains? How does that work? Okay, I'm not that bad anymore. But yeah. Well, I'll definitely post some pictures over on Instagram from like Warhammer World and stuff. So follow me over there. We'll have the breakdown as soon as we can get it out. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for chiming in. Both people, whether the people who agreed with me, the people who disagreed with me. I love hearing it all, and I love talking to people who are passionate about Middle Earth, and especially when we can do this in a respectful way and not like resort to calling names and like being nasty about it. Like at the end of the day, it's an adaptation. Like the books are always going to be there for us. I hope that this show is encouraging some other folks to like dive into the books, because that's always a win in my mind. Um and yeah, I just really love having these chats, and whether you agree with me, you disagree with me, whether you love the show, like the show, dislike the show, hate the show, covered all the touch points on the spectrum there. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, you are welcome to chime in here, and welcome to voice your opinion on the things you like, the things you dislike. Um, and yeah, I enjoy this. I thank you guys for tuning in and for chatting with me about this episode. We'll see what episode 5 brings. I think we'll be back with Anatar and Celebrimbor, which I'm really looking forward to, because like I said, I think that's the strongest so far for me. So yeah, we'll see you next week. We'll do this watch party again. Get up at crazy early hour, and in the meantime, be ready for the breakdown. It'll be on the way. I've got a notepad here full of notes from the episode. So yeah, we'll get it out, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.